Hello lovely simmers, SimsEclaire here and welcome back to my channel. For today's video we are doing a townhome speed build. I was inspired by a picture I found on Pinterest. I will put the picture on the screen for you guys. Now obviously the picture only shows the front of the house, so the inside and the back was completely my idea and my direction. But I did want to say, obviously we are not working on a save file at this point. Part of my save file for Oasis Springs was finished on Monday. If you haven't seen that video or the rest of the Oasis Springs series, I will link it somewhere in the description or up on the screen or at the end. Basically, I'm working on a save file where I am rebuilding every single world in The Sims 4, and we started with Oasis Springs. And that does lead me to a Twitter poll that I posted, which was asking what world you all wanted to see me build next, and Willow Creek actually won. I did make the decision I was going to do the 3 base game worlds first, so the only 2 options in the poll were Newcrest or Willow Creek, but Willow Creek did win, so that is what we're going to be starting with on Monday. So I'm super excited about that. I have all of Willow Creek planned, and there's a couple of townies I have makeovers for and, new additions to their families and stuff like that, so I'm super excited to share that with you guys. But in terms of this build, it is in Windenburg, and it's not really in the traditional Windenburg style. It's not really a Tudor build. It almost more represents Brightchester, but I didn't want to build this in Brightchester because I wanted it to be on the water, and all of the lots in Brightchester that are like kind of on the water aren't really on the water, and even this lot isn't really on the water, but I liked how it looked out over the edge onto like the little canal we have back here, so that's why I called it the Water's Edge Townhome. And initially I was going to build like a flowing river that like led up to the house, but obviously, like I said, none of the lots actually connect to the water, so that didn't end up working out. But I do get a little fountain in the back when we get to the decoration part of this build. But the townhome shape is coming together really nicely. I decided to go with this like octagonal, however you say that word. I decided to go with that for the front of the build, and then use like a tower-like roof piece, so that way it looked a little different from some of the builds that I have been doing recently. And then we have kind of like a more modern extension off to the side that I am going to be placing a whole bunch of windows on, so it kind of looks like a multi-functioning greenhouse that isn't actually a greenhouse. But back here, I'm just extending the back area over here. I knew I wanted there to be 2 bedrooms in this build because I wanted it to be for students, and I wanted it to kind of be like an opposite student type of thing. So one of the students is really into electronics and robotics, and I figured he was like a total geek. He went to Foxbury and he was a part of the Bot Savants, and he really liked gaming and all that stuff. And then the other student was an athlete, so they were really into sports. They have a punching bag in their room, and they're really active and also kind of a bit of a partier, so I do place some party decorations around as well. But right now we're working on some details for the build. I'm adding these roof pieces just to give the roof a little bit more texture, a little bit more structure. And I also add some to the cone up here on the top, just again for some texture. And then I'm adding some wall decorations as well. I wanted to break up the different levels on the outside, so that way it wasn't just one cohesive wall piece. Sometimes I do this with columns, but I wasn't liking how any of the columns looked with the wallpaper I had chosen, so I decided just to use these wall pieces. And then I struggled with the windows on this build. I do end up cutting out quite a bit of the window placement because I could not figure out what windows I wanted to use. I kept going back and forth between Discover University and Get Together windows because we are in Windenburg, which came with Get Together, so I wanted to use those. But the build screamed more like Discover University Brightchester stuff, so I was having a huge issue. I decided to do a mix of the two, and I really like how it ended up turning out. And then I placed some ivy all around because I did think that this house was probably a little overgrown. It's probably something that they rent out super cheap to different students and different like people who are on a budget and stuff like that. And not to mention, if you're playing with the roommate system in the game, then you could also add like bunk beds in. I placed 2 double beds, but you could put 2 bunk beds in instead, and you could have 4 Sims living in here, and then that way it could be like almost like a frat house or something like that, and they could have just like a whole bunch of different students. Each roommate would pay rent, and it would help kind of pay for this place. So I was also thinking about like maybe doing that, but I did decide to stick with just the 2 Sims. And then if you guys decide you would rather play with more than 2, then go right ahead, put in bunk beds. It would be a super easy fix. You could probably even fit 2 sets of bunk beds in each room. So you could have 6 Sims living in here and make it even more like a college sorority or a college frat house or something along those lines. So that's definitely another idea. But back here we're going in through with some more landscaping. I wanted it to be really lush, like I said, a little overgrown. They leave this to the care of the students, and obviously they don't have quite a bit of time, so they don't really ever get anything done in terms of landscaping. But they have a couple of nice pieces. You know, they have this bird feeder, and I ended up placing a bird bath, I do believe, as well. And then we're placing some of the necessities, because I've noticed with a lot of my builds recently, I've been forgetting to place mailboxes, and then when I go in to take my screenshots, it places a mailbox just like randomly in the middle of a room, and then I have to go back out and fix it. So I needed to make sure I remembered to place the mailbox here in this build, or something probably would have shown up in my screenshots of just this like random thing in the kitchen. But now I'm finishing adding some of the sculptures, and then I'm trying to fix the inside here because I did accidentally leave that wall blank. And now we're on to the actual interior of the house. So I did cut out the floor planning because it took me a really long time to figure out the floor plan, and it wasn't necessarily because it was overly complicated, but I was watching Wonder Woman while I was trying to do this build, and I love that movie. I love all DC comic movies, but Wonder Woman is like amazing and wonderful, and it was the original, not 1984, although I did like 1984, but I was watching and I put it on because I thought that it'd be something that, since I've watched it before, I've seen it, I wouldn't need to sit there and like watch it again. But then one of the fight scenes came on and I like totally stopped paying attention to what I was doing to just sit and watch the movie. So that's another reason why I cut out some of the things. As you can see, I put some pet bowls. I did think that these Sims probably had some pets, because when you're living off campus at university, it does function as a normal household, so you can have pets. If you were to make this a university like residential lot, I forgot what they're called, like a dorm room lot, but I don't think that's technically what they're called in the residential menu. But if you were to make it one of those, you can't have pets, but you also can't have a stove, so you'd have to get rid of the stove and replace it with like a microwave or something. But that's why I never use that lot type, because I hate the idea that you can't have stoves. Like, I understand why, like, a lot of different colleges have different restrictions on stuff like that, but I cannot get over the fact that our Sims couldn't be able to cook anything. And then over here, I'm just doing a couple of decorations. I tried to make everything seem a little bit more fun and youthful than some of my builds have been recently, because, you know, I've been working on my save file, so I'm using all these bright, colorful plants, and I end up changing these to some, like, orange and yellow bookends, and then some blue lights as well, and I'm kind of just trying to bring in a whole bunch of different colors. I did think, like I said, these kids went to Foxbury's, so that's why I'm trying to add in the red and the orange and the yellows, because those are Foxbury's colors. And then over here is just a small little dining area. Another thing that I wanted to do to make this a little bit more student friendly is I place a whole bunch of books and like random student clutter all over the place. So there's a book on almost like every single surface in this house, and I probably went a little overboard, but I thought that it was super cool. Just like, you know, they were all spread out. They probably had friends over for study groups and stuff like that, and they did their homework wherever they had a chance. That's why I put one of the computers in this build, because there is two, because there is an office, but that's why I put one of the computers on the countertop, because I figured one of them was probably eating breakfast while working on some homework before they went off to school or something. So that was kind of my thinking. And then over here I am going to put some lights on the walls just to light up the staircase, and then we're moving over into the living area. So the living area is kind of an odd shape. It's very long but not very wide, so I was trying to keep that in mind when I was decorating so I could keep it functional. And I end up using these Parenthood couches because they have different fun colors on them, and I liked how the red and this yellow swatch kind of match the rest of the room, because the walls are plain white, and I did do that on purpose. I know I've been doing that a lot because of my save file. Everything is like super modern, but I did it on purpose in this build because I figured if they were renting out this house to a lot of different people, you know, during different semesters and stuff, they probably wouldn't have the walls painted any like extraordinary color or anything like that. Now the bedrooms do have colored walls. I figured that the kids probably came in and painted them themselves or put up some removable wallpaper or something, you know, as young adults do. But now I believe we're about to go into the bathroom. I don't know why I'm taking such a long pause right there, but now, yeah, like I said, we are going into the bathroom. And I left the wood flooring in here because I was thinking that this was probably an old build and maybe the bathroom had been added in later, so they decided to keep the original flooring of the house, or maybe the original bathroom had the wood to begin with because tile was like not really that popular back in the day. So that's what I thought. And this is the only bathroom in this build. The 2 bedrooms are upstairs, but I couldn't quite work out the floor plan to fit another bathroom. But I'm also adding in a vacuum and then like the wall decoration of a broom and stuff from laundry day, because I figured that that would be where the students would keep all their cleaning supplies, you know, out of the way of, you know, their parties and their friends and stuff like that. And then in here is the office. So I do put 2 desks because, like I said, I was planning on 2 Sims living here. I put a computer in here because the other one is sitting in the kitchen. And I'm just adding a couple of different like clutter and hobby objects. Now I do end up getting rid of that easel because I placed it without even thinking, because you guys know me, I usually have an artist in the house, especially when I'm working on student builds. But then I remembered that I was planning on having one of the students be more like savant, like robot savant, stuff like that, and more into robotics and gaming. So I decided to switch out the easel for the robot building center that we got with Discover University. I don't really ever play with that item because I don't have any Sims who have ever been in that career. Well, that's a lie. I had one teenage Sim once who wanted to be in that career, but then she died before I could get her to go to university, so I've never played with it again. Anywho, we are now in the sports player's bedroom, so I decorated it with kind of like an orange and white theme, and I'm using these beds from City Living because they're super cheap, and I figured that they were kind of like, you know, basic IKEA beds for kids to go ahead and buy. In fact, they honestly kind of look like my IKEA bed, so there was no shade in that one at all because, like I said, they do kind of look like my bed. And then I'm just adding a couple of decorations. I didn't want to do anything too fancy because, like I said, I thought they probably got this place for cheap, so I didn't necessarily think they'd have a lot of money. There's a signed sports poster and then some different football players. I figured they were probably his favorite. And then this guy I figured wasn't as neat as the other one, so he has a whole lot of clutter all over his floor, you know, different magazines and books piled up all over the place. And then in here is the more like scientific robotics guy. I give him his own little reading corner so that way he can sit and read and do his homework and stuff in case, you know, his friends having parties downstairs and sitting in the office doesn't really work. But besides that, I don't really give him a lot of clutter or decorations. I thought he'd be very simple, you know, he never really spent a lot of time up here in his room. He was either at the library or at Robots Club or doing things at the school with some of his friends. But yeah, and I don't know again why I'm sitting here paused like this for so long. Am I literally, I know I place a chair here eventually. Okay, there we go. I was like, I know I place a chair here. I did go with the City Living chair because I thought that he probably found it when he moved in here, or maybe it was like a hand-me-down from his parents. And then back here, like I said, I do add a fountain. I thought that the house probably like labeled that as a selling point for students. They could sit out by the fountain and do their homework. I know that I would definitely look for a house with something like this, especially if the weather was always nice where I was, because then I could sit outside, you know, have some nice areas around me and do my homework like outside and in a beautiful scenery. But I add some chairs out here for that purpose, and then I also do a dining area with this grill and table, and then I also add a couple of dance floors out here along with this stereo because, like I said, I did think one of the Sims was more of a party sim. But besides that, that is it for this build, so I hope you all enjoyed this one. If you did, please be sure to leave a like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all next time. Bye!